Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first upload of the channel, where I will try to read mainly HFY stories for you. That's r/HFY from Reddit. Today, I will be reading my own attempt at a story as to practice for the outcome of future readings. Hope you like it. Let's begin. Signalless Void. Coffee and Complications. Approximately 162 cycles ago, the radio wave traffic that leaked off into the void from the locally named Sol system abruptly vanished. Of course, this didn't mean that everything was shut off, but every major and notable communication traffic of the Terrans had seemingly gone dark, leading the few who knew of the circumstance of the neighboring and isolationist civilization curious. However, due to their nature of having no trading or political affiliation with the Jacanti Republic or anyone at all in that sector, there wasn't much concern for what had happened, especially since the difference and the distance between the governments were far too long for a caring approach to be employed. Even after the event had been noted and confirmed, a spy satellite was only prepared and launched after the 60th cycle. It was on its way to find out what had happened to the humans. As it always happened when something occurred in the void, theories and breakroom stories emerged from the Jacanti Spatial Intelligence Bureau's communication techies. Even though a hush was put on the event, it was as effective as telling the Galoi to stop eating garbage. It always was impossible to stop the enlisted from gossiping when away from the prying eyes of the general command. The first to realize the blackout event from his shift was Marin, a JSIB interstellar communications specialist. He had been through interrogation after interrogation, having to make statement after statement to Jacanti he didn't know or had seen before. At least his shift was also reaffirming what he saw in reports, possibly cutting down on the time that he had to spend in a room with minimal light, where he was asked multiple questions. His shift's help also made him more believable, while also spreading the accountability of the young Jacanti from himself to his colleagues. If nothing would show on the spy satellite, at least my shift lead would take the heat, he thought nonchalantly. It had been 2 days since the paid leave, and the interrogations stopped. However, Marin noticed that same little unmarked utility vehicle that he regularly saw was still parked a block away, apparently never changing its place since its stationing. This made Marin question the competency of the jib, even if it was blasphemous. His branch was certainly newer to the system, but these suits weren't being bold either. He was practically under house arrest. Soul damn it. Well, yes, he could technically go out or do anything. However, his actions, from whatever he did, were listened to and watched. Just like half of the JSIB communications department. But it felt like he was the only one complaining about it. He was going back to work today. He had to get his little pick-me-up. Pressing the button of his improvised coffee maker, he said his goodbyes to his last remaining brown, pure dust that was gradually turning into what was lately his favorite liquid. An inescapable smell blasted his nostrils as he waited ravenously for his coffee maker to finish producing the juice. The pouring finished, and as he started pouring it into his cup, he thought back to the time when he had bought it. The brown dust was just sitting in a marketplace shop. Him being apparently adventurous, that particular cycle had him think, why not? Soon, becoming practically addicted to it, and spending most of his credits in a bulk order, which was a good idea when he thought, considering he couldn't find any more of it from the same shop. Neither could he find the shop. And for some reason, the PlanetNet site he had purchased the thing from had vanished. All of the unnecessary thinking went away with his taste buds getting almost scrambled by the sudden intake of hot beverage. He wasn't sure if it should be waited to cool down, or if it was to be gulped in one go, but he liked to drink it, sip by sip, when it was freshly out of the machine. It didn't matter, he thought. It probably would taste good in either of those ways. Finishing his last cup, he felt energized and unstoppable. The high of the coffee never seemingly adjusting to his months-long high consumption of the practically drug-like substance. Whoever had this must be trying to kick their actual addictions, he thought, making him momentarily weirded out. Have I been drinking some weird medical chemical? However, the taste left in his memory and the general warmth he was feeling made him forget about such trivial worries he had about the thing. Wearing his synthetically woven button-up shirt, with his currently offline headset slung around his neck, he got into his worn boots, grabbing the briefcase next to the hanger he didn't use. He was ready to go out. Basically, kicking his door open with a briefcase in hand, he made his way to the utility vehicle being worked on by two Jacanti suits. Since his bus had yet to arrive, he figured he had time to fool around, though the safety of this could be argued. He felt like some inner branch bender couldn't hurt. He walked as the one Jacanti sitting in the passenger seat eyed him curiously, but there was nothing of note that could be read from his face. He tapped on the passenger side window and asked, "Hey, I know you're supposed to be keeping an eye on me or whatever, but you realize that staying in the same spot with the same car makes it pretty obvious, right?" Feeling his face transform into one of a smug actor that pulled a huge stunt, Mirren observed the man on the passenger side turning to his left and turning backwards, talking to someone. The suit then turned back to him and made the tinted window roll down ever so slightly just to ask him, "What do you want?" in a deadpan and, at the same time, somehow annoyed tone. Marion wanted to push his luck even further today, and had a rather amusing idea come up in his mind. However, he didn't know if the suits would find it amusing or not. Here goes nothing, he thought. Since you will be following me back to the relay station anyway, mind giving your pal a ride? It would be much better and appreciated than riding in the public transportation pool. The agent looked at me with his mouth agape. He was undoubtedly taken aback by the sudden request, mainly because the request was made by me, who they were tasked with shadowing. The moment continued on for a while, then cutting the awkward silence, an undoubtedly female voice rang from inside the utility vehicle, seemingly angry. "Sure, pal, get on. We were already going there. No harm in helping a neighbor." The last part didn't seem genuine, or true for that matter, and that pal was plain insultingly phrased. But it worked. Free ride, I guess, Marin thought. The suit on the passenger's side crawled to the driver's seat and popped open the mag locks for me, and I got in. Seeing the opening in the middle back, I saw the other agent. This is who the passenger side suit was talking to. Probably nothing to note, I thought. Looking at her, I just saw a regular Jacanti woman. Probably was picked because of how normal she looked, which was beautiful on its own. Light blue skin tone, her face looked clean from any skin conditions or erosions. Generously cut short hair, tied in a single tail. Not having time to observe more, he sat in a seat, riding shotgun, buckling himself in. "My name's Marin, by the way," he said without thinking hard enough. "We know, genius," the driver snapped back. "Thought you communication types were more intelligent." The she suit shot back. "That was my fault. What did I expect from two stuck-up suits?" So much for pleasantries, I thought, as the driver hit the button for ignition. The engine came to life, silently, but its activation was felt, shaking the vehicle. The archaic but still used wheels turned ever so slowly, but gained speed in the absence of traffic, and they made their way towards the JSIB relay station site. Driving through the suburban part of the grid was amazing. Usually no traffic was on the ground since people tended to use their credits for their convenience sake and purchased flying vehicles for themselves. Though, fuel consumption wise, the economic viability of this was dubious at best. Sure, spaceships used fuel too, but at the very least, they were made to go out of the atmosphere, leaving the flying vehicle concept feel a little silly, thought Marin, and he reasoned that the current vehicle that he was in, vis-a-vis that the Jib was using, also made sense since it was quite an economic friendly car, and he doubted that the Jib could spare the budget that was already getting pulled thinner and thinner by the other branches. The ride had been quiet so far, and it was awkward to say the least. Mirren decided to say something about the weather, but reasoned it was best to keep quiet for the short duration of the drive that was left. Side-eyeing the driver, he saw a younger person than he thought he saw prior. He must be an intern of some sort, he thought. Who else would be assigned such a job where being the detail of some stuck-up political party member's daughter existed? Doubt those agents were having fun. Then again, I guess you can blame those agents for being stuck up, as the she-suit behind him was. Whatever her deal is, he wondered. Making their way through a highway ramp, the trio ended up on an empty road that didn't seem like it was in use. Following it led to some open fields. And soon, towers with boxes on top of them, and giant antennas appeared, reaching into the sky almost as if they were touching the clouds. Making their way through a fenced-up gate, the car halted in front of the entrance. A Jacanti stepped out of a booth with blue-hued glasses that didn't allow for visibility from the outside, wearing his BDU and having a black armband with white MP scribbled on it. The soldier got next to me and tapped on the window, just as the driver of our vehicle opened the passenger side window. "Hey, Jasanti, long time no see. Shift changed?" I said, showing him my ID card and appropriate credentials, while the driver's side agent showed him his Jib info card. Jasanti shot back a questioning look before okaying their information with his shoulder-mounted communications device. "Hey, Marin. Yeah, from the night shift to the day. Soul damned command just can't let us catch a break." "You're preaching to the choir," I said, pointing at driver's side agents next to me. Apparently, I need to befriend the new interns at Jib now, I said mockingly. Gisanti cracked a smile at that. He didn't want to be seen laughing on duty while two Jib agents were around. Alright, well, pass on through. Nice to see that they lifted your paid vacation. I smiled at that. The paid leave was dubiously enjoyable with drinking cheap solche at home and getting paid while doing so. I waved at my semi-friend as the driver moved us forward and we arrived in front of the JSIP building. I assumed this was probably the last time in a long time that I would be seeing these agents since the general lockdown on my person was lifted and I was cleared for duty, regaining my privileges of working. In hindsight, I'd much preferred the sitting at home, drinking, and the getting paid bit. But work had to be done eventually. Also, it reminded Marin that he saw a whole system blank out of comms existence, and for some reason, this just came to his mind now. Feeling a bit sheepish due to his lack of general care, he picked up his pace, went through the automated glass doors, checked in with on site security personnel, did his scans, and got clearance to enter the B wing of the building, where his colleagues were undoubtedly working hard to get a glimpse of Sol's signals. Surely it must have been a fluke, an error. However, Marin didn't know the full extent of the situation, since he, as well as his colleagues, weren't clued in on the whys or hows, just that their screens decided to stop receiving the leaking signals coming from the Sol system, and the leaking signals weren't a one-off or two thing either. Almost entirely, thousands upon thousands of voices used to come through the Giganti system. But one night, it was all gone, without warning. It felt as if an insanely huge EMP blast led to the Terran's sudden blackout of anything related to long-range communication. He finally made his way to the communication interception room, waving to the guards at the door. He saw his shift manager, Exton, currently busy ordering the comms guys to change the angle of receivers to different angles, one by one, suggesting a different angle each time the prior one didn't work. They were trying to come up with a solution to intercept non-existent signals. He saw his friend Ulisurti fidgeting a button up and down, with the other hand holding a microphone to her mouth. He listened to her make a general announcement towards the Terran's governing bodies, asking if they could hear to please respond. After making those announcements 2 more different times, she clicked on a button in a practice motion where her prior message started to play automatically on loop. And she turned around to see me looking happily surprised, saying, "Ah, hey, Marin, I missed you. I can't believe they even put out a no contact order for each of us. At least it was lifted now." I hugged my friend, whom I had missed for a long time. "I missed you too, Lucerti. It's been a while." After our short hug, I turned back to our manager. Guess he's still working us until we got something back from the Terrans. Not sure what he's expecting, honestly. We just need to wait for the satellite to reach there and see for ourselves, instead of trying to hail dead air, she replied to me sheepishly. Apparently we're going to be viewing it firsthand from here. A specialist next to us chimed in. "They're going to turn on the big monitor for us too." I wondered why on Jacal they would let us view it after taking such precautions to keep it hush hush, but I thought maybe they decided to inform the general population. Not like it was a big deal to say that an entire network of communications and their respective signals were down. I'm sure it's nothing to freak out about, I mused on my head. Higher ups would probably come to this room and let us see what they saw. Also, maybe we were supposed to reach out and talk to whatever governing body of the Terrans that stood, since that was quite literally our job. I wondered when it would be happening, as I didn't think that anyone in this room knew when the supposed satellite would arrive at its location. So we just had to wait. "So they will finally use that big thing, huh?" I said, always thinking that the purchase of that giant monster was an unnecessary use of our funds and paychecks, since whatever the branch decided to get, it would be cutting our salaries with it. "Probably the most interesting thing to happen from this whole thing," an engineer next to our seating group said. Olicerti mockingly hit the young engineer's hat, making its visor smash his face. "An entire region's worth of communications gone, and this is the thing that impresses you?" He laughed, and I also joined in with a smile. The engineer huffed and said, "Well, it's not like I actually understand what's going on anyway." He seemed to be a little too interested in the machine itself. I couldn't blame him. Not understanding something leads to such outcomes at the end of the day. After a while of back and forth, chatting and banter, the hours went by as I joined in on tuning into different positions to hear the supposed turns. But I couldn't find a viable solution for the orbiting receiver platforms, both wasting their fuel and my patience. Also my salary. But that didn't matter. I managed to save quite a lot in the absence of going outside. Not that that mattered. It was my salary that got toyed with, not my personal finances. So there was that at least. The clickety clacks of our boards and stimulating audio from our buttons were the main noisemakers in the room, just like the chemical lights outside our corridors that buzzed. This was our own buzzing. It went on for hours, and at the end, another shift was completed. Waving goodbye to my friends and colleagues, I made my way towards the exit, but soon got waved back inside the room to the middle of the control center. My shift manager wanted me to come over, so I followed the bidding of his request. Mirren, apparently you will be next to the general staff on standby. That's going to come with the satellite viewing. You have been elected to be the comms specialist for the mission. If it is required, you are requested to be operating with them. So just be ready for the orders you most certainly will get thrown your way. I was confused, to say the least. Why me, of all Jikandi? But it wasn't like it's the end of the world, considering all I had to do was sit on guard for anything that may hit our receiver, letting us be aware of something's existence on their system. Just a few button pushes and click clacks. It truly couldn't be that hard. Alright, thank you for the heads up, sir. I will be ready for when the time comes, I stated, not actually knowing if I would be or not. Either way, Exton looked pleased with me and patted me on my shoulder. I went on my merry way, only to realize that I could catch a ride back with someone if I was quick enough. So I made my way towards the parking area, just to see Lucerti apparently waiting for me in the lobby foyer. She waved me over, grabbing me by the arm, and stated, "You think you're gonna end the day without going to the bar for some solche?" She dragged me into her aerial transport. She was careless like that, but also, due to that fact, I now had a ride home. Even though I had to drink a little to get home, you couldn't find me arguing about a few drinks, or any amount for that matter. I just hoped that I wouldn't get shit-faced too badly. I didn't want to be hungover the next day, or the day after, as it could be bad both due to the satellite mission and the smell that my body would secrete after the ingestion of the cheap drink. I don't want to piss off my colleagues with the hangover stink. Oh well, it was too late now. As Lucerti's aerial transport blasted us away, settling in my seat for a long night, I waited as we made our way through the grey-blue cloud cover of Jektar. And with that, we come to an end of the first video and story. I hope it was enjoyable. It certainly was a new experience to me, be it writing and reading out loud to someone other than myself. The original uncut audio was 30 minutes, and with all the cutting I had to do due to misspelling or just fumbles in reading were monumental. There are still some less than mediocre parts left in, and I apologize for that. I simply wanted to get the first video out. And also, apologies for the bad writing if the dialogue seemed off. I'm not really the greatest dialogue writer, or a writer in general, but this was only a stepping stone, and I will be improving with each new reading session. I'm glad if you have managed to stick with me this far, and I'd love to see you again in the future. And also, if you have a story you want me to read, I would love to try, so drop a comment with the name of it, and if I'm allowed, I shall be reading it. That's all for now. Have a good one.